Oh, this is going to be a good one.
You're listening to Pete the Planner.
This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. That's how it works. See, the show doesn't work without you. That's overselling it a bit. We'd be fine. But email us, askpete@petetheplanner.com. Ask Pete at petetheplanner.com. I said the U word. The U word is us, and us involves Damian Dunn. Hello, Dame.
Hey, Pete.
Studio North today, not Studio South.
Yeah, the great Northeast today.
Dear Pete and Damian Dunn. They spelled your name wrong in this question.
It's not the first time and won't be the last time.
No relation. Good day. I love your show. This is a regular listener.
Good day. Yes.
Because if you say good day, we laugh. I love your show, Pete, and appreciate Damian's contributions. He's almost as funny as you are.
That might be a stretch.
That is a stretch. I could use your advice regarding allocating extra income. The good news is here, Damian actually is smarter than me, so that is helpful. My husband and I. Oh, by the way, I am back to reading the email.
Okay.
My husband and I are 34 years old. We have one kid, and I'm hoping for a second. We make a combined income. Well, don't just hope. Get to work. That's
after they listen to this.
We make a combined income of $140,000 a year. We have a $100,000 balance on a $120,000 mortgage. We max out Roth IRAs. We contribute about $15,000 to each of our 401ks each year. Total right now in retirement account is $140,000. We have an emergency fund of $10,000, which is about 3 months of expenses. Our only other expense is my student loans. I'm eligible for the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program in 2024. Mathematically, the forgiveness program makes more sense for me than trying to pay the balance earlier. I chose a stupidly expensive Ivy League school for my graduate degree and have over $300,000 in student loans. Lastly, I will be eligible for a pension if I stay with the federal government until retirement age. My question is this: where should we allocate extra income as our budget becomes clearer after birthing our son? Birthing as a verb.
Is that really what it says?
It does. It's graphic. We may have extra funds to play with. I'm considering 401k versus a 529 type account versus paying off the mortgage faster versus what? You tell me. My hubs has no preference and is tickled that I love managing our finances. Thanks for your help. You guys are the best. I don't know. Should I give the name? I don't ever know if I want people to give the name or not. I'll make one up. Trudy.
Yeah.
Trudy.
Fantastic.
First impressions, Dame?
Sounds like they got it going. They got everything together. I feel like there's not a whole lot we can suggest here that's going to go wrong.
Yeah, you take an Ivy League education, you take a healthy household income, not a lot of debt other than the Ivy League education that they've got a plan to pay off. You're going to be okay. Here's the thing, Dame. What do you think about the ethics of taking advantage of the public student loan forgiveness program? And I know in me asking it acts as though I think there's something wrong with people sort of premeditatively using it. But I'm curious if you feel that way or not.
This was the one thing that not the ethics side of it, but this is the area I thought we might be able to have some conversation around. It's a program that's set up and is expected to be used by students who qualify for it. Just the fact that let's put it this way: would you feel differently if it was a state school versus an Ivy League school?
I think I would still ask the question. I would still. I've always wondered this. I just wondered. And by the way, it's not that I think that there's an ethical issue here, but I think it's an interesting question. Is if there's a program like this where people borrow money and then because of this program choose a way to not pay it back, is there anything wrong with that, or is that just smart?
No, I think it's smart. I mean, the program is set up to entice people to go into lower paying jobs, not in the private sector, but in the public sector, and give them a way to, try and get back to a level playing field with people who may be earning more money on a regular basis. So I think the intent is good. I guess we could argue or continue to explore uh, the ethics of it, but it's a program set up to get really good minds into lower paying positions, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, again, it's not that I feel the other way. In fact, I would say the program is intended to grab someone from an Ivy League school and get them into public service.
Yeah,
It sort of worked perfectly there. What would you do with their financial life, and what would you focus on? I feel. Look, I mean, we're splitting hairs. Let's just be honest. This is the split hairs segment of the show because there's not a lot different that we would have these people do. I think a 529 account can obviously make some sense. I mean, while they're at it, they might as well just either increase their savings or bump their 401k contributions up a little bit too.
yeah,
$140,000 balance, or 100, is that what the balance was? Yeah, about $140,000 in their retirement accounts at age 34 for people that are doing this well. I would like to see that a little higher. Frankly, it's great, but I'd love to see it higher.
yeah. The retirement balance could be a little bit higher, but I don't. Was the retirement balance inclusive of the Roth accounts? Do we know?
Total right now in retirement accounts is
Okay,
140. I think that's
well, we'll
inclusive of
just
it.
assume that's inclusive. Um, yeah, I mean, keep maxing out the Roth. Maybe bump up the 401k a little bit. 529, especially depending on what state you live in, makes a ton of sense, especially if there's some current income tax incentives for you to contribute to that. But
What
yeah,
about the idea that, like, trying to pre-save for the treadmill years? They have one kid,
mm,
two working parents. When they have two kids, then you get expensive daycare. What about pre-funding now so that they're not going backwards when it comes to, what is the expensive years of your life when your kids are 1 to 6 years old?
sure, yeah. If you wanted to start building a nest egg for the treadmill years, or you know what, maybe the second kid makes you decide you're going to stay home for a little while. We don't know that either. That of course throws public student loan forgiveness into a bit of a question as well. So
Unless her
as
husband
long
stays
as
home. I mean,
well,
I've
that's
seen
true.
that. I had a
That's
client
true.
that did that, like two high earners, and because of a factor just like that, it made more sense in their family situation for the dad to stay home. He did for several years. They went back actually went back to nursing school
Hmm.
and sort of restarted his career after a period of reflection, and of course a loud period of reflection because he was taking care of two young boys.
How did he find the peace to reflect?
I don't know. I can't find the peace to watch opening night of football this week. My kids are so
Oh,
loud.
so
So
sorry.
Dame, this is a good one. I don't see any reason whatsoever for the people to pay off their mortgage faster. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
No, I'd chuck extra funds at retirement, or building up a cushion for treadmill years.
Yeah, an emergency fund is 10,000 is great because that's what they should have. But I think a family like this, I mean, you got to get to a point where a family like this has 30 grand in cash, or I mean, they need they need flexibility money, whether goes towards the treadmill years or not. I feel like I don't know. I'm coming down with my ruling. Here it is. Assuming they're going to put some money into a 529, I think they need to get really aggressive and saving more money towards just boring flexibility, non-retirement savings.
Such an exciting answer, but probably the right answer.
Yeah, that's tough. This is great though. Good job. What do we call her? Trudy?
Trudy, Trudy.
Nice work, Trudy. You spelled Damien's name wrong in the intro, and then later in the email you spelled it correct. So much for Ivy League as educations. I can't even talk.
Yeah.
Dame, coming up after the break, more of this show. You're back. I'm back. Everyone's back. This is the Pete the Planner Show, and I'm so glad you're here. Back on the Pete the Planner Show. If you want to ask us a question, we encourage you to do so. We just prefer it be written and typed. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. Joining me from Studio Northeast is Damian Andrew Dunn. Dad,
Oh, thanks for that, Pete.
you're welcome. All right, Dame, this is not a question. Actually, it is a question. It's a question for you. I'm writing my USA Today column today. USA Today column today. And I'm writing about when to get rid of your car that you've been driving forever because it's taking you deeper in the hole with repairs, and you know when to jump back into a newer or new car to you. Are you a drive cars into the ground guy? What is the Dunn family philosophy, Northeast Indiana?
Uh, uh, Full disclosure, we have been pretty terrible with our car buying and usage history. We've kind of churned cars for a long time, but we have started to amend that. We were on a path where I think I've had my car for well over 3 years, which doesn't sound like much, but for us in our family, that's saying something. So yeah, usually we get rid of cars before they give us any trouble, but we are committed to trying to uh, run these as long as we can.
Okay, so
Kids destroying cars will do that to you.
that is a good point to deal with here. But let's kind of dig deeper into what you just said.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I can't talk. Prior to your current philosophy of driving the car that I've known you to have the entire time I've
hmm
known you, would you go buy a new car or a used car? Would you finance it? Would you lease it? Would you pay cash? What were you doing?
Used and paid cash.
Okay, same, right? Same
Yep.
for me. That's what. Well, actually, we'll get to me here in a second. Okay, so then what you did is you paid cash for a used car, but now you're holding on to it longer. Is basically the change.
Yeah, yeah, that's the major change. There were a couple times that we bought new cars for various reasons that are frankly too boring to get into here. But our philosophy has always been find a nice used car and pay cash for it, and now it's going to be hold on to it for as long as you can.
Yeah, I think kids definitely play into this. I mean, it affected Mrs. Planner and I's last car buying decision because it was her turn to get a new car. But then we realized if we did that, and by new car, I meant new to us, that the kids would destroy it. I
hmm
mean, they're just at that age with sports and muddy feet, and
Yep.
it would be a mess. And so we did something different. Now, I guess, Dame, how do you have a way to determine whether or not it's time to make a different move based on the expenses of maintenance and repair?
We're still trying to work our way through this because we're at the point where the age of our cars and the mileage they're starting to require some serious attention. I did a transmission in one of our vehicles earlier this year, but it still had enough utility for us that whatever we wanted to replace it with, we couldn't justify spending more money when we could just fix what we already had, even though it was a expensive, fix. So we're still trying to figure out what that breaking point's going to be to get rid of a vehicle that we know the history of at least for the last 4 or 5 years and move into something else when we can just plan on spending more than we typically would have for maintenance, but it's still a serviceable vehicle.
Good. Well said. You
Yeah.
know, we were there recently in the spring, early summer, late spring, early summer, where we needed to do something. Like we needed to make a car move. And previously, I would take a big chunk of money and buy a 3-year-old car and then drive it for 10 years. I mean, that has been our jam for a very long time. And based on what we have going on in our lives right now, and just I got a business, I like to keep extra cash around in case I need a cash infusion or something like that. Hey, a little look behind the curtain, everybody. And so I just decided, you know what, I don't want to take tens of thousands of dollars of my money and part with it, because I would rather have liquidity, I would rather have that money. So what I decided to do, because cash flow isn't a big issue for me right now, I decided to lease for 3 years until we get through this period of time in which we can get back on track. And so I figured cash flow is not an issue for 3 years. I don't want to. I was talking to a good friend who I really trust with their financial decisions, and he was like, "Okay, why finance a depreciating asset? You know, it makes more sense to him to rent, lease a depreciating asset, and then the repairs of it never become your problem. It's under the same idea that while renting a house can at times make more sense than buying a house because you don't have the maintenance and repair costs. So, Dame, when I put it in that perspective for you, if cash flow is not, you don't mind having a payment and you're not consumed with owning something outright, because if I have a car payment over a 10-year period, it could arguably equal what you've paid out of pocket in a full cash payment for a car.
Sure. My previous behavior would have been one that probably would have been textbook for leasing, the leasing case, because I was going through a different car on a fairly regular basis, not because I needed to, but frankly, I just got bored. I've fancied myself as a bit of a car guy. I know you can't tell that
You
based
are a
on,
car guy.
yeah,
I mean, you
based on,
really are.
yeah. I love cars. Always have, something that, for as long as I can remember, my dad and I used to do and chase and talk about and go to car shows and all that fun stuff. So, um, I love cars, and so you could have made a case, and that's actually one of the reasons that you would consider leasing, is because you want something different on a regular basis. So, if cash flow is not an issue, well, leasing may be a decent solution for you. You just have
You
to
know,
make
it's
sure.
weird.
Go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
I said just make sure the you're not preventing yourself from achieving other goals, with that additional payment. But, um, in the right situation, it's not a bad option.
Let's say for a second here. Anytime I say the phrase cash flow isn't an issue, that's a really gross statement that can be misinterpreted several different ways. Here's what it means, by the way, if I say cash flow isn't an issue. It means I fully fund retirement. I currently fully fund my kids' college education. I have a full emergency fund, and I have money left over at the end of the month. That is what it means when I say cash flow is not an issue. Dame, it's almost like the emailer in our last segment. Cash flow is not an issue for them. They're fine that way. Here's where cash flow is an issue. You're not maxing out your 401k, you're not fully funding your kids' college education, and you don't have a full emergency fund. In that circumstance, I would argue that making a decision based on free cash flow is a bad idea.
Absolutely. There are things that take priority in your life, and hopefully, cars aren't one of them. If you boil it down, cars serve a very basic use. They get you from point A to point B, and it doesn't have to be, um, a brand new Audi to get you from home to work. It can just as easily be a 10-year-old Toyota Camry to do it. Um,
L-
sorry.
No, I was going to say, let's say for a second, I'm just doing some math here. Let's say for a second, I pay $25,000 for a car, cash. Okay, used car,
Okay.
and it's a to get an equivalent car, I would have a $300 lease payment. Okay,
Okay.
coming up after the break, we'll continue this conversation. I will do the math. You'll love the math. It will be great. I'm Pete the Planner. All right, back on the Pete the Planner show doing car math here. So here's the deal. I'm writing USA Today column about when to get rid of your car you've been driving forever and to get another car because the maintenance cost gets you. Dame, what we didn't talk about in the first segment in this regard is sure, you just fixed your transmission. You made an investment in driving your car longer. But what you don't know is what's the next thing to break and how much will that one cost you? Because if it is a cost that does not make sense, then it could be argued that replacing the transmission was a bad idea.
Absolutely.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, you go through that with, certain home appliances or whatnot, whether it's a washer and dryer that may need repair or a cooktop in my case recently that just decided it was going to,
What'd you
take a
end up doing?
nosedive. We bought a new one, actually.
You did? I thought you were gonna run a gas line.
Yeah, yeah, so another look behind the curtain. Man, everybody's so probably not interested in this, but, um, yeah, so we have an electric cooktop and decided that, we should have gone gas in the first place, and so we're actually going to drop a gas line, ourselves, actually, so if I don't show up to work on Monday, it's because I blew up, um, and bought a gas cooktop. So, we just did the math and figured that with what we originally paid for the cooktop and what it was going to cost to repair the cooktop, didn't make any sense, so we went with a gas one this time.
Make sure to take your life insurance documents outside of the home
That's a
prior to that.
great, great suggestion.
You're welcome. All right, so back to the math we were doing. We were saying, okay, sometimes it could actually make more sense to lease a car. And the example was if you're a family like Dame and I, who are not a family but have separate families, no relation, we may at some point in time take 25,000, 20, 15 to $25,000 and pay cash for a used car. That has been my personal philosophy for cars. Dame has subscribed to that. But let's say you do that. Let's say you take $25,000 in lieu of just getting a lease or something like that at about $300 a month. Dame, you would have to buy that car or drive that car that you bought outright for 7 years to justify buying that car. And in that time frame, this is not accounting for any repairs or major maintenance issues. Whereas in a
Mhm.
lease, you've just basically got oil changes.
Yeah, and I know somebody's probably thinking, "Well, that extra monthly payment is not allowing you flexibility because you've got that lease payment." Well, yes and no, because theoretically, you're saving up another big pile of money in the meantime. So whether you're
Absolutely.
paying it to a leasing company or to yourself, the money's still being allocated for future transportation needs.
Look, what I'm currently doing is I'm arguing against a philosophy that I have personally held
Mhm.
for 15 years, and I'm doing such an effective job of it. I feel like I'm almost switched teams,
Well, let's
and by
let
switch teams, I mean
to
I think
yeah,
leasing's a good idea. I
right.
am currently leasing, as I told you, because of this. I thought to myself, I do not want to part with tens of thousands of dollars in cash. I didn't want to finance the car and then still deal with a similar situation. I wanted to get rid of the responsibility from a warranty perspective, and I wanted to use my positive cash flow to solve a need here. And so far, so good. I may feel different at the end of this lease. I don't know.
Well, we've suggested leasing to coworkers previously,
Yeah.
in the right, situation. So it's not that we are, necessarily anti-lease, but, I still think there's something to say for if you're the type of person who just wants to drive the car, hang on to it for as long as you can, buying an inexpensive used car with cash, if possible, still makes a lot of sense for most people.
Especially if you've got cash flow issues.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and let's say this. I think this goes to a bigger issue, which sort of expands the segment here a little bit. A lot of times in the financial world, you hear big, bold statements of like, this is always dumb. This is always good. Man, it doesn't work like that. Dame and I combined have, feels like 40 years, 40 years experience in this
Yeah,
business.
let's not.
And what we know is that when you say things like permanent life insurance is terrible, no, it's not. It's
No.
right for the right person. Leasing a car is dumb. No, it's not. It's right. Dame, it goes for when people say renting is throwing your money away. When people say, um, you know, front loaded mutual funds make no
Mhm.
sense. There are certain products in the financial annuities that people love to hate on. You'll see commercials all over cable news that like, if you've got this sort of financial product, your financial advisor hates you. No, that's not true because that financial advisor may have chosen the perfect solution to your problem.
Sure, they uh, hopefully your financial advisor understands you and your situation maybe even better than you do and can suggest the right product for you that ticks all the boxes and may not be understood by somebody outside of your situation, but that's okay.
I mean, I'm back to the car lease thing here for a second. Dame, would you rather give me $25,000 and I will give you a car? Or would you rather give me $300 a month for 7 years? Meanwhile, you still have the $25,000 in case something else in your life over a 7 year period comes up. Which would you rather do?
If cash flow is not an issue, I think it makes more sense to probably pay you a little bit at a time.
I mean, wouldn't you rather have a big pile of cash when life happens, for when you have to hire someone professional to install a new gas pipe in your kitchen because you've blown up the kitchen and then to remodel the kitchen.
Yeah, but shouldn't arguably that comes out of the emergency fund, and a new car purchase doesn't come out of your emergency fund.
But when you still have a big pile of cash, whether it's an emergency fund or just in a non-retirement savings vehicle.
Oh yeah, I'm filling up a room in my basement to be Scrooge McDuck, and we're just going to go swimming in that pile of cash.
You know what was weird about Scrooge McDuck is that he knew English.
That's the weirdest thing about Scrooge McDuck.
That's it.
Okay.
He could make some money, but it was weird that he knew English.
Hmm. What language would he have known?
I don't know. I was thinking like a Cantonese duck or a
Oh,
Peking duck
yeah.
sort of situation, but I couldn't make it work without it seeming like mildly offensive.
That's yeah.
So we're just going to move on from there. Dame, I do feel like this type of conversation, it forces people to, not the Scrooge McDuck thing, the leasing versus owning or the renting versus owning a home. I just ask that people not just go through cultural norms and say, well, this is what my parents always did. This is what we should do. I think you have to really examine your situation. I feel like if you're renting and it gives you flexibility and it prevents you from, having to repair or maintain a home, then you're a genius. Good for you. You're silly to expose your financial life to risks you can't handle or mitigate. And if you don't have a savings account and you own a home, you're asking for it. That is karma knocking at your door. And then when they knock on it, it's going to break. You're going to have to pay to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'm just excited that when my wife gets back home today, I can tell her that Pete told me to lease a car.
Listen, I want to say this right now. Don't ever summon my name when having a discussion with your wife.
She
I do not like to be in my friends' wives' bad graces.
she
I
will
do not
drive
want to
down
be there.
there. She will drive down there and take care of business.
I'm a little scared of her.
Yeah, well, you should be.
I feel like she was a college athlete. I was a college athlete. She was a more successful college athlete.
She was.
I was an outright failure.
Yeah.
Still. Dame, coming up after the break. Biggest waste of money of the week. I got a doozy for you this week.
Awesome.
And some current events. Your team gathered current events for us this week. The financial concierge team at your money line, of which Dame is the man. You got
Yeah.
it feels like a rocking chair is in your studio there.
I kick one little thing.
All right, coming up after the break, more of the show. I'm Pete the Planner. He's Damian Dunn. No relation. The show is just getting good. If you leave now, you've just wasted a bunch of time. Here we go. This week's biggest waste of money of the week here on the Pete the Planner show is Dame. Which one do you want? The really big waste of money, or like the really big waste of money?
Let's go with the really big waste of money.
Okay, it might actually be a good thing. The Darth Vader helmet, a well-made replica. This is not. It was worn on screen by David Prowse in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. This authentic Darth Vader helmet is among the holy grails of film memorabilia. The prop is made from fiberglass with a mask painted dark metallic gray with black accents. The interior of the mask is marked 1, indicating it needed to be put on prior to the jet black helmet. While the PVC fitting that connected the two is gone, the screw holes for it remain, as do the remnants of the Velcro that served as a backup connection. The turned aluminum atmospheric sensors at either side of the vent and the mesh behind it are also missing, and the helmet has minor chips and dents from use, but it remains an extremely rare and desirable artifact. It will be joined in an auction with a full-sized, screen-used model of R2D2. All right, Dame, what do you think the starting bid for the original Darth Vader helmet with a few missing pieces? What do you think? Starting bid?
Starting bid is going to be 50 grand,
250,000 American dollars
just a
starting bid.
little off.
Yeah. Imagine if it wasn't missing pieces. Now, this next item for biggest waste of the money of the week, Dame, it is a giant waste of money. Okay, but I'm gonna come back to it and I'm gonna extend some grace to it. That's the plan. Are you ready?
Let's have it.
The Acer Predator Thronos Air gaming chair. Gaming rigs don't get much more serious than Acer's Predator Thronos. Now, there's a more accessible option in the Thronos Air. In addition to a chair with massage function, it includes 3 monitor mounts, an adjustable keyboard and mouse tray, a footrest, and a cable management system to hide all the wires. Cameras, hubs, and even cup holders are available as add ons, meaning the only thing it's missing is the computer, monitors, and input devices. Damien, this is a chair that you sit in while you're playing video games. That, as I just described, it's an all-in-one system. You got these monitors. You don't have monitors, but it's place for monitors. You put your computer. It's just like a. If you ever go to like a big boy arcade, as Ted and I call it, where there's
Yeah,
big boy games,
sure. Yeah.
it looks like that. It's $13,999 to sit down and play video games in this chair, but you then still have to supply all the gear
For the chair
for the
is
rig.
is $14,000.
Yeah, but here's where I'm going to go with this. Okay, I do not have a bass boat. Okay, I just that needs to be put out there.
Okay.
But there are people that like to fish as much as I do, and even more so, even less. And they make a purchase of a bass boat to enjoy hooking fish in the face, right?
Mhm.
How's that different than this? I mean, a boat is a giant waste of money. That's not the point. But how is this different than someone else expressing their different interests and making an investment in those hobbies and interests? Season tickets to a Colts game or a bass boat or a balance beam. I don't know.
I It's a chair. I mean,
Isn't a
the
boat just a floaty?
sure. It's exactly what it is. Just a floaty. Yeah, it's oh my goodness. I mean, you're getting to the point where wait, $14,000 for a chair if you consider that a reasonable cost. What's next?
Like you're flabbergasted. Here's what we've learned about me on the show today. I've just said a gaming chair is not a complete waste at $14,000, and I've suggested leasing cars makes sense for the certain
And
people.
a bass boat is a floaty.
And a bass boat is a floaty. Damien, this week in current events in the financial world, music revenue surges on streaming subscription growth. Revenue from recorded music in the U.S. rose 18% to 5.4 billion in the first half of the year, driven by growth in the subscriptions to streaming services like the ones offered by Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Dame, do you subscribe to a streaming service?
Um, Technically 2, although they're kind of throw-ins for other services that we already pay for. So, Amazon Prime, you get access to their catalog. Um,
Samesies.
and then uh, our cell phone provider gives us access to another one as well.
They do?
Yeah.
What do you get access to?
I don't remember. I think it's Spotify, maybe. I'm not can't remember. You can clearly I use it a lot.
Yeah. I'm a Pandora guy,
Yeah,
personally. Like Pandora, I pay for that, and we get Amazon as thrown in with our other stuff, but I never really use that.
yeah. So, what was the first CD you ever bought? CDs, kids, are these little, metallic discs yeah, anyway.
Uh, I feel like we've talked about this on the show. I bought 2 CDs at the same time. It was Biz Marquee's "I Need a Haircut" single,
Okay.
big Biz Markie fan, I can't talk. And then Pauly Shore's,
Oh, man.
I'm Gonna Glaze the Donuts comedy CD or something like that.
Well,
Which I'm very
I
proud
am
of
r
that.
right wait, my first CD was Milli Vanilli.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you blame other people for that, or do you just blame it on the rain?
It's clearly the rain's fault. It's finally
We
falling.
talked about student loan forgiveness in some segment today. Is this today's show been 4 hours long?
It feels like it.
We had all sorts of technical difficulties before we got started. I went over in one segment, which requires editing. I said we should lease. I call a boat a floaty. But Dame, this just in, Congress has authorized a $700 million fund to help fix a popular but troubled student loan forgiveness program. However, that was a okay Stephen A. Smith. However, a new report shows that only 1% of applicants have been approved for relief under the expanded program, and more than 54,000 have applied. You know, Annie Nova, who has actually been on the show before, is
Mhm.
the reporter on this. She studied this, and she was on this show talking about this very topic. Here's the thing, dude. That 1% issue, I'm going to say it wasn't really the government's fault. People just weren't qualifying, and they were assuming they'd qualify, and they do things wrong. That's not that surprising.
No, and if you're going to lean on public student loan forgiveness, Trudy, from first segment, make sure you're consistently qualifying going forward. Check every year. Make sure that what you're doing, your employer qualifies for public student loan forgiveness. Stay on top of it, because the last thing you want to do is be one of the 99% of the people that applied and get denied for it and find out that you've got at least another year of payments to go.
The Department of Education processed 54,184 requests for loan forgiveness from May of 2018 through May of this year, 2019. 99% of temporary expanded public service loan forgiveness requests were still denied. Most applicants were rejected because they didn't properly submit the application, had not yet made 120 payments, or their loans did not qualify. Man, I don't like letting the government off the hook, but how's that the government's fault?
It's not.
Are you telling me people didn't read the directions?
Po-
Hey, we're gonna get hate mail about this.
among other things.
I mean, people won't get upset about my leasing and floaty boats, but damn, I think people are gonna get angry. But it's people's
Yeah.
fault.
And everybody else send pictures of your chairs that you're trying to sell on Craigslist to Pete. He may think they're a great deal.
No, I'm not buying the $14,000 chair. I'm just saying, look, remember, oh man, we don't have time to go into this. I've just come to understand that I have different interests and I spend money on interests. So if gamers who I don't have anything in common with want to spend money on gaming things, who am I to say it's a bad idea?
A financial expert?
The show is over. Join us next week. I'm sending you good vibes because the good vibes are all that's in the budget. Dame's here. I'm here. This is the Pete the Planner Show, maybe our last episode.